Hey everyone, Matt from Strong Group Personal Training here. Today we're going to be talking about bench press cues and some good ones and some bad ones. So really common to hear cues like elbows in, shoulders back, chest up, and those are all actually really good cues if they're used properly, but commonly we'll see compensation with that. So let's deconstruct this a little bit, right? So elbows in, the idea behind that cue is we're trying to create external rotation. You'll see a lot of lifters, if they don't pack their shoulders properly, as they come down, they kind of chicken wing and they're really internally rotated and they press up, all mangled in their shoulders, and it generally represents a lack of stability in their shoulder blades, right? Chest up makes sense. We're trying to shorten the range of motion to the bar. We're trying to get extension in upper back. Sometimes we'll see lifters botch that a little bit where they'll kind of prop themselves up on their head, where instead of lifting the chest up like so, right, they'll actually push with their head, and it's going to limit how far they can move this, because in your bench press, because your head's fixed, your head needs to be able to actually fold forward relative to your rib cage. And if you're pushing back, you're stuck and you physically can't lift your chest up because this angle can't close properly, right? And then pinning the shoulders back and down is pretty common. We'll talk about that in a moment. But how do we fix lifters who are kind of maybe over cueing elbows in? Let's take a look into that. So if we think about the reason why we want elbows in, we're looking at getting the lifter to correct this, where their elbows shoot out. Now, what happens a lot is they don't address the shoulder blade problem that's going on, and they'll simply tuck their elbows in, and their shoulders are still shrugged up, and it's still a pretty crappy looking bench press. I've seen probably just as many people, or lifters I should say, injure their shoulders or piss off some rotator cuff muscles over tucking as they have under tucking as well. This isn't much better than this because the angle that you're trying to direct force through the shoulder and through the elbow isn't lined up with the angle that your body's at, so there's just inefficiencies there, right? And what we're looking for is that elbow is going to sit directly underneath the wrist as you go through the whole range of motion in order to give you the most power out of the stroke. In the press itself, we want to try to fix this by getting the lifter on their back here, and they're going to try to feel as though they've got two parallel lines for arms, so their forearms are parallel to each other, and they're trying to rip those parallel lines apart. So they're never changing the angles here, but they're imagining trying to rip this way. So what that's going to do, even in our lifter that chicken wings a little, is they're pulling the wrists outwards, which is getting them to line up with the elbows. They're getting good upper back engagement too from the pulling motion. And you'll see this ends up in a much more neutral bench press position than we were initially in. Second piece we'll see is a lot of lifters get cued chest up and they kind of prop themselves up on their head and their chest really can't lift up as much. So how do we resolve this? Well, we'll get the lifter, let's say, who's mentioned their chest is quite low and they're really struggling to get up, and you can see they're trying, but just not lifting enough. So often what's happening is they're trying to create extension by throwing their head back instead of moving their rib cage, and it's just a change in awareness that needs to happen. So to fix this, we take their head off the bench. So we get them here, and then get them to lift their chest up and lay their head back on the bench, and then they're going to go through their press like that, right? So really just as simple as a change in setup is all I'd look at there. And those are kind of two big things you can work at with setting your shoulders in the bench press, locking them in, and overall getting a little bit more out of your bench press cues. Thanks. That's it for this week. Last thing I want to mention is we've got a great Facebook group going on called Starting Powerlifting. It's got a wide range of powerlifters or people who are looking into getting powerlifting, all the way from just starting out up to lifters who've been lifting for over 10 years. All ranges of strength levels and experience within that as well. If you're interested in submitting a form video or asking questions, or even just kind of seeing information like this a little bit more regularly, feel free to give that group a join. I'll include a link in the bio on the YouTube video. Finally, I want to mention that we've got a great Facebook group called Starting Powerlifting going on. It's got a wide range of lifters, starting from people who are just getting started with their lifting journey all the way up to lifters who've been lifting 10 years or more, and all wide ranges of experience levels within that as well. If you're interested in joining that group, posting up a form video, asking questions about your own lifting, contributing and kind of supporting the community, or just simply learning more about stuff like this, feel free to check it out by visiting the link in the bio on Instagram or in the description on YouTube. Thanks. See you next week.